Hello, and welcome to episode 44 of the Criminologist podcast. Happy to have you all with us today. I want to try something a little bit different with this episode. As you may or may not know, this podcast is a production of the Paragon Group, LLC, more specifically, the Criminologist Media Group division of the Paragon Group, LLC. The Criminologist Media Group also brings you the Criminologist YouTube channel, where you can find all sorts of complimentary content to go along with the themes of this podcast. We're actually simulcasting and creating the YouTube video and this podcast at the same time. If you follow the Criminologist Media Group on either our LinkedIn page or on Twitter, again, our Twitter handle is @Crim Media Group, @Crim Media Group, CRIM Media Group. If you follow us, then you're aware of the fact that we try to take a critical look at how justice-involved individuals are portrayed in the media, and that, of course, includes instances of positive media examples. One such film, which I recently watched, and I posted about this, was entitled Calm with Horses. Calm with Horses is a 2019 film out of Ireland. I felt it did a good job of accurately portraying the struggles with criminality, change, and identity that many individuals struggle with on their change trajectories. We talk on this podcast quite a bit about the risk-need responsivity model and the various desistance approaches. We talk about how some criminogenic variables such as substance abuse and unemployment can also be found in the desistance literature. And we also talk about those variables which are strictly germane to desistance advocates. Those might be things such as identity and belonging. The film Calm with Horses, I feel, does a good job of really exploring those variables. And unlike too many films, it does not exploit them, but rather shows how that interplay works in the human change process. Please, if you have a chance, check that film out. I would love to hear your thoughts. Calm with Horses, directed by Nick Rowland. Check it out. Now, in that same vein of highlighting examples of media, which we feel do a good job of highlighting some of the themes of the Criminologist Media Group, we want to take a break from our usual format and dedicate this entire episode to a film I recently watched. The film is entitled The Cured. The Cured is also an Irish film. It was released in 2017, so just a few years old. I watched the film initially due to its apparent zombie storylines. So, full disclosure, huge zombie genre fan. In fact, I was a zombie film aficionado before The Walking Dead sort of ruined it by oversaturating the market, to tell you the truth. My passion for zombie films goes all the way back to George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, which, again, if you want to go back and rewatch that film, was really much more about some of the social issues of the time and not strictly a zombie movie. So, back to The Cured, I recorded this film on my DVR a while back, and then it just sort of sat there unwatched, in that I thought, well, it's another zombie movie, been there, done that, but I'll save it for a rainy day. And holy cow, I'm glad I finally got around to watching it. The description of the movie on IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, reads, "A disease that turns people into zombies has been cured. The once infected zombies are discriminated against by society and their own families, which causes social issues to arise. This leads to militant government interference." So again here, full disclosure without any spoilers, I'm watching this through the lens of criminology, and if you want to go back and read that movie synopsis again, a disease that turns people into zombies has been cured. This entire film, as we're about to see and hear, is all about bias and discrimination with the reentry process for justice-involved individuals. So we'll talk much more about that later on. The Cured is available to watch on Hulu for free, or you can rent it on Amazon, I think, for $3.99. What I suggest is that you pause this podcast at this point and track that movie down, or if you've already done so, turn on your television or your device, and then join me for my reactions and commentary as we tackle just the first 1/3 of the film on this podcast and YouTube episode. So about 30 minutes in. And again, I'm also recording this for my YouTube channel. So if you truly want to get all of my reactions, have a watch over on our YouTube channel, The Criminologist, as well. That, of course, again, The Criminologist on YouTube channel. Here, then, is how we shall proceed. I will watch the film along with you all. I've got my headsets actually plugged in to my iPad where I'll be viewing the film, and I'll give you at home who are watching along a countdown, and we will try to synchronize our start times. Then as we watch, like I said, about the first 30 minutes or so of the film, I will endeavor to keep my editorial comments out of the way of the movie dialogue as best I can. And if you're choosing simply to listen along without watching the film, that's fine as well. I will try my best to keep you up to speed with the story. But the value added here, of course, is that you'll see my observations and hear my observations about the film. It's really not all about zombie reintegration, but rather zombies are used as a clever bit of symbolism to recreate and or show the struggles of justice-involved individuals as they try to reintegrate back into society, despite society's best efforts to keep them from doing just that at times. Does that sound familiar, criminal justice practitioners? And or those of you who have lived experience who can perhaps relate to that? Okay then, let's start our first watch party here, fingers crossed. Get your fingers on your remote control and get ready to hit play as we kick off the Criminologist review and critique, if you will, of the film The Cured. Okay, if we hit play right about now, you should be seeing that this is an IFC film in conjunction with here, the Irish Film Board. Okay, so as we watch the opening credits here, again, if you're in the criminal justice field, I just want you to watch for the parallels between the themes of this film and justice-involved individuals being released from custody. If you have seen the great documentary, The Road from Crime, there's an awesome quote in that film in which they say that the real punishment starts when you're released from prison. And again, you're going to get a lot of the themes here too about biases and not giving people second chances and prejudice and all sorts of things that we deal with integration struggles now. Okay, so here's our prologue. For years, the Maze virus spread across Europe, causing a violent psychosis in the infected. While most of the continent managed to control the contagion, the virus devastated Ireland. Eventually, amid the chaos, a cure was found. In 75% of cases, treatment was successful. But the cured remembered everything they did while infected. Now, as the government debates the fate of the resistant 25%, the last wave of cured are ready to be reintegrated into society. Or are they? Alrighty, so here we go, folks. Lots of flashbacks here. I'll try to keep you up to speed, but essentially we're going to be following the saga of one protagonist who is cured, as they say, cured of the virus, or again, sticking with our analogies, he has been successfully rehabilitated and arguably desisted from crime. Alrighty, and just to give you an idea here, I wonder if I can flip this camera around. Nope, okay. I was going to try to give you a shot of the film as I see it here. So we see the young gentleman here. He is still in custody. You can say the look on his face. He's just riddled with second thoughts and doubt and apprehension and fear. A lot of the same things for individuals approaching their release date from custody. Talking to another resident, if you will, here, another cured, trying to reassure him that everything will be fine on the other side. he's asking, what do you think it's going to be like out there? Again, just the fear of the unknown. Universal themes here that we see with justice-involved individuals. Again, I don't think we really comprehend this when we look at release plans. We think of, do you have stable housing? Do you have stable employment? We're really not addressing, to the degree we should, that fear of the unknown and the apprehension about what released individuals are going to be faced. All right, so now this is analogous to the first meeting with his probation officer. We see a gentleman in uniform asking, how long were you infected? 4 years. And he says, do you have nightmares? And he says, the answer to that question is, he doesn't have nightmares. Or he does, rather, and his PO says, good, they're there to remind you of what you did. I call them his PO. It's not the PO in the film, but he says it makes you wonder about those who don't have nightmares. So again, not the working relationship we typically see here. Skipping work will not be tolerated. Antisocial behavior will not be tolerated. Do as I say, and your life will be better. Kind of a jerk for a supervising agent. So now he tells him his sister-in-law has agreed to take him in. And he said, well, I didn't put in for a request for that. To which the authority figure says, not everyone gets to go home. You should be grateful. Zero empathy going down here. Zero empathy going down here. Okay. Try to get a better camera angle for the YouTube viewers here. How's that? All right, so they're released. Here we go. And it's a handful of them. It's not just one or two. It's a small crowd of the cured being released. And we see they're leaving kind of a tent city here where they had been rehabbing or going through their cure or whatever it might be. We see signs on the subway about the virus, the maze. And again, I can't help but think of everything we're going through with the pandemic right now and the virus analogies. Armed guards on the street, still recovering, I imagine, from the zombie apocalypse, of which the film referenced. So now they're throwing vegetables at the bus, calling them scum. We see protesters holding up signs. They don't want these people released back into society. Once a criminal, always a criminal. Or in this case, once a zombie infected, always a zombie infected. We hear sirens in the background. Again, just a lot of fear, almost like an angry mob of folks, not sure what to do with these folks being released or how to, how to address this new phenomenon. All right, let me listen in for a second, see where we're at. So we see our protagonist getting a hug from his friend that he was in custody with, trying to reassure him here a little bit, saying we need to look out for each other out here, okay? Again, justice-involved individuals, a common theme. We need to look out for each other out here. There's zero trust of the government being able to help them. And again, I can't help but wonder, with justice-involved individuals, what's that trust level like? Do we just make these assumptions that the practitioners are trusted or even well-intentioned? So now we hear news reports asking, what do you think of the release of the third wave? And the gentleman saying, it's going to be a disaster. Just they'll never be able to reintegrate. This is a mistake. We see violence on the streets. They're being assaulted by protesters, both male and female. And the gentleman just said, well, my uncle was in the first wave. And the reporter asked, well, how is he now? He killed himself last year. Again, if you're watching at home, a lot of the same biases and fears, unjustified fears that we hear about folks being released. And then the other backstory here, the government is struggling with what to do with the 25% of the infected who the cure did not take, that are still manifesting their zombie-like, behaviors. So again, I imagine this would be analogous to, well, what do we do with these ultra high risk individuals? So do we just incarcerate them forever? All of our other rehabilitative efforts have not worked. What should we do here? All right, now in the film, we can fast forward to the Elliot Page character here. She is taking in her brother-in-law, gives him a big hug at the door, sit down at the kitchen table here. He's thanking her for letting him stay. She says, well, you know, this is your house after all. Lots of pictures on the wall from the children, it looks like. So again, if you're working with individuals on parole or supervised release, again, we make these assumptions that folks can just pick up and left off right where they were before incarceration. And again, it's dangerous to make those assumptions without totally understanding the process they're going through. And so his sister-in-law has made a joke here about the decor and saying how she was going to hire an interior decorator. And he says, but they all got eaten. So a little bit of morose humor here. She's basically saying how she can't leave the country, even though she's an American citizen. Their son was born there. They're still a risk. Only naturalized U.S. citizens can leave Ireland. Talking about a job getting lined up, and he says, yeah, they got a job for me at the treatment center. To which she replies, why do you want to stay there? He says, well, you know, it's a job. Again, struggles. This reminds me of Mystery Science Theater 3000. I grew up in Minnesota, so I was a fan of the show before it went huge, but same type of thing, just giving commentary along to the film here. So now she's asking him questions about her dead husband, his brother, to which he replies, well, we got separated. Long, awkward stares here. And he can hear his nephew in the other room. Want to go say hi? So the nephew's in the other room playing. Again, I'm thinking of all the times of returning individuals from prison to their homes back in the day of being a parole agent, and the reintegration with family and the awkwardness and everything that goes with that. And so right now, if you're watching at home, we're about, I can't tell how far in. So his nephew just said, are you one of the cured? And he says, yeah. Will you be sick again? Or you could say, will you reoffend again, if we're sticking with our analogy here? He replies, I don't think so. Kid just kind of playing with his toys, asking him if it's nice to be back. Not based on the look on his face. He says, yeah, but, you know, he doesn't have much of a poker face. All right. Meanwhile, sister in the other room making dinner. He's getting ready for bed, but I see a flashback coming on, folks. That's what that ominous music tells me. And sure enough, here we go. Flashback. So this is pre him being turned. Looks like he's with his late brother, running through houses. Yep, he's telling his brother Luke, we have to go. And they must be back at his house because the crib is empty. But uh-oh, someone else is here. It is a zombie. Yep, and there ends our flashback. So we see him getting attacked here, getting bit. Telling his brother Luke to run while he holds the zombie back and takes one for the team and gets bit. Hence his infection. And now you see him after being turned, bloody hands pounding on the door. Back to present time here. Okay. So now we have The Ellen Page character sitting at the table. She's looking at her kids' drawings on the wall, but reflecting. And oh, who's this standing outside the window? It's his old buddy from pre-release. I'm not sure what to refer to that as. I don't want to call it prison, but so he's back with his father. Let's see how his reintegration goes. His father looks very well-to-do. Nice car, nice home. Hello, Dad. He's dressed like a janitor, and he explains that he's been working as a cleaner and how ridiculous that is because, we find out here, he's actually an attorney. So he's asking his father if he'll put in a good word with the firm, maybe get him back to work as a lawyer, an attorney, a barrister. Saying how Mom wouldn't want this, but the dad puts hands on him. Don't you dare mention her name. I saw what you did to her. You're a monster. Dad. No, Dad wants nothing to do with it. So again, we infer here that the son, when infected or when offending, killed the mother. And Dad's not going to be forgiving of that, even if he was under the zombie virus at the time. So again, these themes of redemption not really taking hold with folks, depending on the severity of the offense, obviously. Okay, back to our protagonist here. He found a bicycle in the shed, so hey, I'm going to bike to work. And again, his job that they lined up for him was back at the treatment facility where they were all going through the process of being cured. So he's almost like a counselor that gets a job back at the rehab clinic after graduation. And again, in the film, the United Nations is here. This is still post-zombie apocalypse, so they're checking IDs and they're flashing something in his eye here, which I assume is reflective of the fact that he's now cured, and reporting for duty back at the quote-unquote treatment facility. Lots of armed guards around. He's a little apprehensive, lots of tents, and lots of screaming from the uncured. So you're hearing zombie groans and moans coming from somewhere in the facility. Now he walks into an old gymnasium with what looks like a drained swimming pool. And, again, very ominous, almost post-apocalyptic looking feel here. He's got scrubs on, as though he's not a doctor, but almost like an internist, an orderly, if you will. We hear the sounds behind the screams of heavy panting, which, as a veteran zombie film watcher, I can associate with the infected. And he's not sure what to make of this. Nobody else here in the room yet, just this sound coming from behind the screen, if you will. And you see someone on the gurney. Dun, dun, dun. I'm going out on a limb here, folks. This is the infected here. Someone, recall, 25% of the infected, the vaccine didn't take. So now we have a new character, and shame on me for not having the actress's name pulled up here, but I know her from both Ray Donovan, and she appeared as Trixie on the HBO series, on the South Dakota Deadwood. She played Dixie on Deadwood. And I do know from my research that she actually is an Irish actress, so I will get her name for you as well. I'll get all the names of the folks for you here as well. So back here with the film, he's being asked to hold down the zombie on the gurney who's strapped down and has a rag in her mouth to keep her from biting. They're still experimenting on these viruses, just trying to figure out why this virus won't take, or the vaccination rather won't take. And he's noticing that she's not trying to bite him. So the doctor says, well, once you're infected, you retain part of the maize virus. So she thinks you're one of them. So she still sees him as the infected. So again, when you get back to, we've always talked on this show about the binary themes, sort of the us versus them. So she's still totally infected or entrenched with the virus. And even though he's been cured, she's still seeing him as is one of them, so she's not biting him or attacking him or anything like that. Okay, now back on the streets. We're going to have some confrontation here with a citizen who's asking the Elliot Page character, did you take one of them in? Again, the type of bias and prejudice that folks might face taking in somebody upon release from prison. And now who's this knocking on the door? I believe his name is Connor, the individual from the treatment facility who was just yelled at by his father for eating his mother and wanting to be back in the house. And the dad turning him away. And he just passes his friend's sister on the street and turns. She doesn't know who he is, of course, walking her child down the street. I assume this was filmed in Ireland. I'm going to have to track that down as well. Lovely setting, though. Okay, now back with our protagonist, who's just sitting on the gurney with the infected again because she's not trying to attack him. He's one of her, one of them. But he's just trying to make this connection with her here. She's just presenting now as, very sad, very melancholy, almost a pathetic scene here. Not the aggressor, because with him, the manifestations of the virus don't come out. He's just sitting here giving her a sponge bath on her gurney in the makeshift medical facility, this old gymnasium in the bottom of a swimming pool. So now we're hearing a voiceover on the radio saying that the Irish government has made the decision to terminate the remaining 25% of the infected, of which that is to say, the virus doesn't get cured with the vaccine. So now we hear a group of cured people saying how much this sucks. And one of them says, I was in prison. This is worse. So there's your blatant sign that the producers of the film, the director, tried to draw these analogies. This person saying, prison was worse than this type of discrimination that we're undergoing here. Oh, his friend is now asking the protagonist, you didn't tell her. You were right to lie. He's referencing the sister-in-law he's staying with. And his friend saying, yeah, you're right to lie. It's worse when they know the truth. So don't share your past sins with loved ones is what the friend's saying here. And now he's telling him how the resisted don't attack us. They think we're still one of them, basically. Means we're safer with them than the rest. Here comes jackass probation officer or whatever this character is. And he wants to have a chat with the former attorney here. He's throwing his weight around with all of his thug soldiers. Again, not much of a working alliance at play here, folks, which we know works. You've been skipping work. I'm not a cleaner. The soldier is laughing. His PO, as I call him, is laughing. Little derision. I knew people like you before the outbreak. They thought the world was theirs on a platter. But here, now, I'm in charge. I decide whether your life is nice or miserable. You just have to learn to obey. Again, I'm thinking of hardcore POs that take this same approach. Just really sad to watch this and think of that. And now the soldier is telling the individual, the attorney, stop harassing your family. They don't want you back. And now haymakers are being thrown. Punches, he takes him down. He didn't like being told that about his family. Again, lots of guards here with guns. This isn't your world anymore, he's being told. So again, I imagine someone being released from custody and being told, hey, it's a different world now. You've got to listen to what I say. This isn't your world anymore. A lot of anger here. You can see a lot of clenched fist among the cured. Again, feeling totally discriminated and just really shit upon here. lots and lots and lots of analogies I could draw between the old school sort of trail them, nail them, and jail them POs and the client-centered POs. So our protagonist is having some flashbacks here, or nightmares rather, that he's regressed back to zombie mode and attacking his little nephew. It was just a dream, everybody. Don't panic. Looks like he's going back off to work here now. Opens the front door and finds graffiti on the front door. Again, clearly someone who doesn't welcome him back. I'm thinking, too, of when I used to supervise high-risk sex offenders. And again, a lot of the fear and apprehension about, when we did the public notifications for the very high-risk sex offenders being released, and we could debate the efficacy of that practice till the cows come home. But again, I'm thinking of the sort of scarlet letter at play here and how that retards the reintegration efforts that we try to put in place. So now we're watching some old home movies here, pre-pandemic, pre-zombie apocalypse, when we're all just one big happy family. So she's really struggling letting go of her deceased husband. Looks like she's a reporter. She's calling into her editor, asking if she received her footage here. And they're saying, you know what? It's really not a story of interest for us now. Yeah, and they're just struggling with what to do with the resistant here. And they just want some coverage of everything reopening. Despite protest, the termination of the remaining 25 is underway, with the military saying this will take place by the end of the week. So by the end of the week, they will have terminated the 25% infected, of which the vaccine does not take hold. So that's, again, a sort of a sub-story we've got going on here, in addition to our reintegration story. Abby, that's the sister-in-law's name. So now, ex-attorneys approached her, introducing himself, saying he's from quarantine, and that he knows her brother-in-law from quarantine. Nice to finally meet you. And she's saying, was Senan with you last night? That's our protagonist, Senan. So he looks like he's sneaking out, and she's, again, a little apprehensive here about his whereabouts. And now they're just having a sit down on the park bench. Again, this is the character whose name I'll get. I apologize, but it's the former attorney whose father wouldn't take him back because of his past deeds. So he's saying how he was actually running for office before the infected. A lawyer, a prospective politician, and now he's working as a janitor because, again, of all of the prejudice and bias that they're attaching to, quote unquote, the cured. So yes, now Connor and Abby are talking, and she's asking, what was it like in quarantine? And he's saying, well, why don't you ask Senan, her brother-in-law? She's just saying she can't do it. Everyone says it's hell, replies Connor. Like being dropped inside your body. He's talking about what it was like to be a zombie and not being able to control your violent urges. And now he says, but what they don't talk about is the moment when you stop fighting and you start to just go with it. So again, I'm thinking criminogenic need. Is there an analogy here where it's like you just accept your fate? I know we talk about scripts a lot here. Maybe that's talking about when you accept, in the moment at least, your sort of condemnation script and just stop fighting the urge to be, the desire to be pro-social rather. Just fascinating to me, the imagery and the corollaries here between those who've struggled with criminality and those who've struggled in the movie here, with this zombie disease, as they say. All right, back to our protagonist, Senan. I hope for my Irish listeners out there, I'm pronouncing that name right? His character's last name is spelled S-E-N-A-N, Senan. And Abby is the name of his sister-in-law, played by Elliot Page, also known as Ellen Page. We're back at the clinic here, and just really no signs of change. So we've got the one doctor here who is, again, played by the actress Paula McColsum. And she's desperately trying to find this cure because she's against the termination of the final 25%. So she's made it her sort of passion project here to find a virus before the government comes in and exterminates the final 25% of the infected, of which the cure doesn't seem to work. So lots going on here, people. So now Abby's character is looking up the character of Connor, and she does verify through old news clippings that he was in fact an attorney, and he was in fact running for office. Now we get sort of whispers here of some of the cured plotting, if you will. They're frustrated with the fact that they're not being accepted by society. All right, back at work, at the treatment facility, Senan opens up a neat little toy that his nephew packed for him to take to work. He looks up and he sees two guards looking around suspiciously. No one looking, and they dip into a holding cell. Now we can hear some sounds, some moaning, and then he's coming to investigate, walking down the steps. And you probably know where this is going if you have been keeping up with all the analogies here that I've been making. Again, he's hearing sounds of a struggle. Dear Lord, tell me it's not so. He's walking past all of the holding cells here where they're holding the other 25% until, again, extermination. And sure enough, he walks in on a sexual assault. The two guards are sexually assaulting one of the zombies, if you will. And he walks in on this, he interrupts it, just in time for her to break free. She senses that he's formerly, infected, so she doesn't go after him, but goes after her assailant, who starts to run away. The music amps up, and what does his colleague do, of course, but shoot her in the back. So now we have the scene where she was previously being sexually assaulted. He walked in on it, and mayhem ensued, and she ended up being killed in the process. And we're going to hear the guards retort here in a moment, which is that they were all scheduled for extermination anyway. So what difference does that make? And they just get up and walk up the steps and walk away like nothing happened. Again, I'm thinking of correctional facilities. We have the Prison Rape Elimination Act, PREA, here in the United States to combat such thing. But again, same analogy, that the infected or the incarcerated, the offenders, are looked at as less than human and therefore subject to all sorts of horrible, horrible things. All right, well, why don't we call it a day there? This was my first foray into this sort of watch party thing. I think next time around I'll have some of the bugs and the kinks worked out with my synchronicity, trying to get everything synchronized. If you're listening, thanks. Hopefully the theater of the mind was able to kick in for you there. Or shoot out over to YouTube and have a watch on our YouTube channel. Better yet, watch the film along with us. So here's the plan moving forward. Next week, I'm going to be bringing you a very, very special subject matter expert. I'll give you a hint. We're sticking with a theme of Ireland here. But in the coming weeks and months, and in the next few weeks, I will endeavor to chunk out the remaining 2/3 of the film for us to dissect. In the meantime, watch the film. Might make it a little bit more relatable, or just look forward to listening and watching along with us. I encourage you to follow us on Twitter at Crim Media Group. There you'll find the latest updates and related content for both this podcast and our YouTube channel, The Criminologist. Again, that Twitter handle is @Crim Media Group, CRM Media Group. Like I said, back next week with a fresh episode. In the meantime, you can contact the show or reach out to us through our website, theparagongroup.llc.com, for training or presentations as to evidence-based practices and implementation science, or, of course, the topic of desistance from crime. I will leave helpful links in the episode notes of this show, up to and including our website for the Paragon Group, llc.com. If you have questions and want to contact the show directly, you can do so via email at thecriminologistpodcast@gmail.com. That's thecriminologistpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us through our Facebook and our Instagram pages at The Criminologist Podcast. New images are being added all the time to those feeds. You don't want to miss out. You can also connect with me, Joseph Arvidsson, on LinkedIn and follow both The Criminologist Podcast and the Paragon Group on our LinkedIn pages. Lastly, if you've not already done so, subscribe to our YouTube channel for additional content as to what you've heard on this podcast. Merchandise is available, so reach out for any questions as to getting some merchandise. And if you believe in what we're doing here on the show, please spread the word, tell a friend or a coworker or a colleague about us. Ask them to subscribe to the show. Do so yourself if you've not already done so. And remember, folks, there's no them, there's only us. Okay, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for those other segments of this watch party for The Cured coming up soon. In the meantime, check out our podcast and our other videos. Be well.